here in Silico. This is PLAR History and Geography. That is right, PLAR History and Geography here at Wasa Distance Education in Silico. Again, my name is Jonathan. I am your teacher for this course. Once again, to listen and to participate throughout my lesson, you can call in at 1-800-465-7144. That is 1-800-465-7144 if you want to call in, listen, and participate. Again, like always, class, there's many ways you can get a hold of me if you have any questions or any difficulty assignments. One old-fashioned way, you can call me at my office. Again, you can call me at my Wausau office in Silico at 1-800-667-3703. That is 1-800-667-3703. Just ask for Jonathan or for my extension, which is 2221. Or another way you can get a hold of me is to email. If you have an email address, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm usually on my email all the time during my office hours. My email is jho@nnec.on.ca. And finally, the last way you can get a hold of me is through social media, through Facebook. Again, my Facebook name is jho wasa. That's capital J, capital H-O wasa. Okay, so again, feel free to add me as a friend. Inbox me any questions. I will respond to your question as soon as I can. Again, I'm usually on my Facebook again during my office hours. I usually post reminders and lessons on my Facebook as well. Okay. Again, all my information you can get hold of me is on the front page of the course guideline or the course syllabus. Okay. Also, if you want to review any material or if you have to miss any lessons, you can go to my YouTube channel at once again jho. Again, all my lessons are uploaded onto my YouTube channel. Okay, so right after this lesson, first thing tomorrow morning, I'll post this lesson onto my YouTube channel, and you can watch it as many times as you want if you need that content again. Okay. Two, you can also go to the main page of NNEC. There's a little link at the top tab. You can just click on it where it says Wasa Distance Ed archive page. Again, it lists all teachers, all the lessons by course code or course name. Again, you can listen or download that lesson through an MP3 format. You won't be able to watch my lesson, but you can still listen to what I'm teaching as well. So again, there's many options if you cannot make it to tonight's class. If you can't, that's okay. If you are, that's great. Okay, and if you are participating and listening, let me know your name. Let me know which community you're from. That way I can jot you down and give you participation marks or jot down that you have been active. Okay. Very, very exciting today, class. As you may know, this is week 9. Yes, class, week 9. Do you know what that means? It means that this week is the last and final week for term 1B. Okay, I'll say it again. This is the last week for term 1B. Okay, so we have tonight's class, which will be our last and final course content material lesson for this course. Okay, and we'll wrap things up on Thursday by going over expectation for your tests. Okay, so today is our last lesson in terms of course material. Okay, so again, last week, this is it. Okay, so I just want to point out that if you are a brand new student and are not registered with SWASA, please make sure you register by this Friday if you're a brand new student. Okay, the deadline for term 2A, okay, 2A, okay, which starts in February and goes towards April. Okay, if you want to take any courses or not registered yet, please make sure you do so by this Friday. That is the deadline for term 2A. Okay, again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will guide you to the right person if you have any questions in terms of that. However, if you are already registered, as in right now, you will not be withdrawn from any courses if you are not finished by this term. Okay, feel free just to continue working on those assignments. Okay, before we begin tonight's lesson, I just want to remind everyone once again our very, very exciting first ever Wasa Distance Ed 25th anniversary trivia game show. That is right, class. Trivia game show. Do you have that knowledge? Do you want that breaking rights with your DC or your friends or your colleagues? Yes, we are having our 25th anniversary trivia game show right here in the studio. Not this week, but next week. Okay, next week, February 4th at 2 p.m. Again, in order to participate with this trivia game show, you must sign up and you must register. Okay, if you have already done so, great, good stuff. Okay, if not, please make sure you do so by the 27th. Okay, it says here to send Candace an email, but if you don't know Candace's email, just send me an email saying that you want to partake in our trivia game show, and I will just forward your email towards Candace. Okay, so again, very exciting stuff. Again, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this academic year here at WASA. So again, we're trying to do a lot of fun, neat things, try to promote our Bridget software, enhance the use of our smart board because we have it. Okay, so another way to interact with our students and our DSC from all of our communities. Okay, again, trivia game show next Thursday, February 4th at 2 p.m. Central Time. Again, questions, just let me know. Just let me know. Okay? Are there any questions about anything before we begin tonight class? Again, just a reminder, this is PLAR History and Geography. Again, my name is Jonathan, and I am a teacher for this course. Okay? On my screen, as you can see, tonight's lesson, our last and final course content lesson, our learning goal deals with latitude and longitude. Okay, these are our two main learning goals that we'll be focused on today. In other words, by the end of today's class, students will be able to locate major map features. Okay, students will be able to locate major map features such as the equator. Okay, you don't know what that is, you will learn about it very, very shortly. Okay, you were to locate the equator. You will also be able to locate something called the prime meridian. Okay, and of course, latitude and longitude. Okay, again, class, we are on lesson 5, the physical geography portion of the course. I am on page 69 in your textbook if you are following along. Okay, so again, our learning goal for today is that students will be able to locate major features on a map, such as the equator, the prime meridian, what is a latitude, what is a longitude, all on a globe or a map. Same thing. Okay? Are there any questions about our learning goal and our expectation for today's course material and our lesson for tonight? Again, at any point throughout my lesson, if you have any question, just ask or just type on this Bridget software or write something on my screen, or you can just simply just listen. Okay? But don't be shy. Don't be shy. Alright, let's begin tonight's lesson by looking at this. Our Earth is massive and big. We know that, okay? So picture the world, a map on a globe. Our Earth is massive and we know it's big, a big planet. We have many continents, countries, bodies of water, cities, towns, communities, you name it, okay? There's tons, okay? However, how do we locate a particular or specific location on Earth? Okay, again, I just mentioned that our Earth is big, it's massive, many countries, continents, bodies of waters, lakes, rivers, streams, forests, cities, towns, communities. But then I pose this question of how do we locate a particular or specific location on Earth? What if you wanted to tell a friend the exact location, for example, Sulaka, Ontario? Okay, if I ask you that question, how would you describe Sulaka, Ontario? Okay, well, if you ask me that question, I will probably say, Sulaka, Ontario is located in northwestern Ontario. Okay, that's not very, very exact because northwest Ontario is pretty big, has many communities. I can also say that Sulaka is about 4 hours west if you're driving west of Thunder Bay. Again, not really specific, not very exact. Okay, so if I'm describing any location, city, town, communities on a particular map or globe, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard, right? Okay, we know Sulaka is part of northwestern Ontario. We know it's in the province of Ontario. We know it's in the country of Canada and on the continent of North America. But where is Sulaka, Ontario? Okay, very, very hard to describe. Okay, so, so in order to do this, in order to locate a particular or specific location on a map or on Earth or on a globe, we need a system. We need a system or something that will help us do this. We need a system that's related or similar to math. Math. Okay, so all you math majors out there or math students out there or favorite subject is math, they're gonna integrate our prior knowledge of math into today's lesson. Okay, so again, remember this is PLAR history and geography. Okay, we're not just dealing with history and geography, where we'll be integrating math knowledge into our lesson today. Okay, so we need a system that is similar and that relates to math, and this system is called a grid. Okay, a grid with coordinates. Okay, what is a grid? It looks something like this. Okay, does this look familiar? So give me a yes. Yes, perfect. Okay, so you have probably seen this, chart paper with these lines maybe, or graph paper, or if you're taking PLAR math, where you have to graph, for example, a linear equation. Okay, you probably see something this before, a grid. Okay, this illustration on the left-hand side, this is simply a grid. Okay, boxes with units, lines go up and down. Okay, very straightforward. Okay, again, we probably saw this in math when we're graphing something. On the right-hand side, again, we have a grid system. Okay, however, this grid system has something known as coordinates. And with coordinates, it will be very, very useful. Okay, again, you have probably seen this in math, the y-axis and the x-axis. If you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. But if you're taking math, you'll probably learn about it. Okay, but again, we need a system that relates to math. We need a grid with coordinates. Okay, coordinates are basically numbers, a number system. that goes up and down and across your grid. Okay? Everything makes sense so far? Okay, hopefully I haven't lost anyone. Okay, again, feel free to ask any question throughout my lesson. Okay, I will repeat something if it doesn't make sense. Just let me know. Okay, so we need the system, okay, which relate to math because we're integrating our math knowledge into today's lesson. Okay, so grid, grid with coordinates. Okay, are we good? Excellent. So let's combine everything. So we're going to combine our grid system onto a map. So on my screen, okay, I have a map of the globe, okay, with all the countries and continents on it. And you can see there's lines on it, okay, that goes up and down, vertically, horizontally, across the globe or this map. Again, you see these coordinates and this grid system with coordinates, okay? With the coordinates on this grid system, it will help us to exactly locate a specific or particular location on any location on Earth. Okay, again, note these lines that goes up and down this map, this globe. Okay, if you're confused, that's okay. We'll explain it in 2 seconds. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. But first, we need to know our sense of direction. Okay, hopefully everyone knows this. Okay, if not, that's okay. That's okay. So again, our sense of directions, okay, we got north, east, south, west. Okay, this is very, very useful in terms of longitude and latitude. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw my 4 points for a sense of direction. Okay, almost like a medicine wheel, almost in a sense. Okay, so at the top we got north, east, south, and west. Okay, I'll say it again. Top, north, east, south, west, like a clockwise direction. Okay, by knowing our sense of direction, it'll be really useful in terms of how to locate latitude and longitude in terms of today's lesson. Okay, lines that goes up and down, north or south, or lines that go sideways, east or west. Okay, feel free to draw this in your notes if you're taking notes. Okay, but yeah, we need to make sure we know our sense of direction: north, east, south, west. You can, I think there's an old saying called never eat shredded wheats. Okay, I think that's one. I think there's another one, but I can't remember right now. But if you need to remember it, never eat shredded wheats, or north, east, south, west. Okay, so our sense of direction, okay, forward direction, very, very key in terms of today's lesson. Okay, questions about our directions? Everyone should pretty much know this. If not, that's okay, but time to learn it now then. Okay, moving along. Okay, using latitude and longitude. Again, remember I wrote equator and a prime meridian. Okay, so let's look at what is the equator and what is the prime meridian. Let's start off with the equator. Okay, so we need to define these two terms and what they exactly mean. So let's start things off by saying the equator. Okay, what is the equator? All right. So we talked about a grid system, all these lines on a map. Again, these maps, these lines, these imaginary lines are not real, they're imaginary. Okay, so on our globe, on our planet, we don't actually have these lines that goes up and down, north and south, east and west. There are imaginary lines. Okay, so the equator also is an imaginary line. Okay, so the equator is an imaginary line that circles the middle of the Earth. Okay, I'm gonna cough for 2 seconds. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, so the equator is an imaginary line that circles the Earth. Okay, note my illustration. Okay, I got a picture of a map, and note this red line. Note this red line that simply goes across the middle of the Earth. Okay, this line is not real, it's not physical, it's just imaginary. Okay, well, same with this line up here. Same thing. Okay, it's not real, it's imaginary. It goes again directly across the middle, the center of the Earth. Okay, what's significant about the equator is that it it measures all north and south directions that are measured away from the equator. Okay? So if you live near the equator or this red line right here, I'm gonna cough again, sorry. Sorry. So if you live near the equator, it's fairly warm. Okay? Whereas if you move away from the equator, either north or south, towards the North Pole or the South Pole, it is often colder. Okay? But the equator, what you need to remember, okay, everyone, is that the equator is an imaginary line that goes across the middle of the Earth um, horizontally. Okay, horizontally. Okay, note these red lines on these two maps. Okay, so that is the equator. Okay, any questions about the equator? I feel like another cough is coming. All right, so let's define what is the prime meridian right now. Okay, so the prime meridian, again, is another imaginary line on the Earth. It is not real, okay? It runs pretty much up and down the middle, the center of the globe, starting from the North Pole to the South Pole, okay? So this line right here, that I'm gonna highlight in blue, is known as the prime meridian. Okay, it's not a horizontal line, but it is a vertical line. Okay, this line is called the prime meridian. Okay, on this illustration right here, starts at the North Pole, goes all the way down towards the South Pole near Antarctica. Okay, and it's an imaginary line that goes vertically up and down the globe. Okay, these are just fancy names. Okay, that we like to call it. Okay, in terms of math, okay, the prime meridian will be known as your y-axis, and the equator will be known as your x-axis. Okay, does that ring a bell? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, so again, just to repeat, the equator is a horizontal line that goes across the globe. Okay, otherwise known as your x-axis in terms of math. And the prime meridian goes up and down vertically from the poles, North Pole and South Pole, also known as your y-axis in terms of math. Okay, up here, this green line, prime meridian, this blue line, the equator, okay? So in terms of math, there are just two fancy names we like to call the equator, x-axis, or prime meridian, y-axis, okay? This will help us to illustrate our grid system when throwing it onto a map or a globe, okay? So now we know what the equator and the prime meridian are and what they mean and where they're located on the map. Let's continue and look at latitude and longitude. Let's define what these are. Okay. Can be confusing, so let's pay close attention. Okay. Latitude. Let's start things off by looking at latitude. Again, when talking about longitude and latitude, again, we're still talking about imaginary lines on our planet Earth. Okay, or on the Earth, on the globe. Okay, again, these are not real lines, they're just imaginary. So latitude line goes east to west or west to east. Okay, they are all flat horizontal lines. Okay, they are parallel to each other. What that means is that they're the same in each distance. Okay, note they're the same in each distance. Okay, note that they're parallel to each other. Okay. See these lines I'm trying to highlight in blue right now? They're parallel to each other, which means they're the same distance apart. Okay, so latitude, again, they are a horizontal line that goes east and west across our globe, our planet, the Earth, or on this map. Okay, they measure the distance, how far you are away from the equator. Okay, again, please note the equator is an imaginary midline that goes across. Okay, latitudes are a line that goes north and east. I'm sorry, north or south of the equator to measure how far you are away from the equator. Okay, kind of a bit confusing, right? Okay, and it measures you how far you are away from the equator. Okay, so how I like to remember latitude is that I like to use the word lats for flat. So I think that's flat or flat line, latitude. Okay, latitude. Okay, so again, each of these lines, so the latitude, for example, they are measured in something known as degrees. Okay, so if I had a protractor, degrees. Okay, so if I click this and throw this down, okay, again, something that you might seen in math, a protractor, where I had to measure the angle. Okay, and these angles are measured in something known as degrees. Okay, so same thing, the crater starts at 0 degrees. Please note the numbers on the side. Okay, again, if you go on upwards, we're going, remember, right? We're going north. So each degree upwards from the equator or north of the equator is known as north. Okay, so we're going north. However, if you are moving down from the equator or south, okay, otherwise known as south. Okay, hence why it's important to note our sense of direction. Okay, so again, I'm going to highlight the equator and the big, thick black line. Again, starts at 0 and it just goes up in terms of different degrees. And please note that these lines are parallel. Okay, so all these lines you see right here, okay, right here are latitude lines. Okay, latitude. Again, these lines right here, latitude, latitude lines, latitude lines. Okay, and then above the equator, north, and then below the equator, south. Okay, think of it as a ladder. Okay, so if you have a ladder, think of latitude as steps on the ladder. So each of these lines indicates a step on a ladder. Okay, so all these lines again are latitude. They run east to west or west to east. They are parallel lines. Each lines are the exact same distance apart. Okay, again, the significance of a latitude is that it measures how far or the distance away you are from the equator. Okay, north or south of the equator. Again, latitude, remember, right? Lats, L-A-T for flats. Okay, so any flat lines, okay, think of a ladder as a step in, like a step, is a latitude. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, whereas pretty much the opposite in a way is longitude. So I want to talk about what is longitude right now. Okay, so longitude are basically vertical lines that goes up and down a grid system. Okay, note that I said that they are not the same distance apart. Okay, longitude lines are not the same distance apart. Why? Because they start at the North Pole, okay, and the South Pole. Okay, so North Pole or South Pole. All right over here. Okay, so these lines starts North Pole, South Pole. Okay, again, pretty much any vertical lines. Again, they are not the same distance apart. Okay, longitude lines are used to measure how far away you are east or west away from the prime meridian. Again, if you remember, a prime meridian is basically a vertical line that goes right down the center of the globe, otherwise known as pretty much your y-axis, if I like to remember it. Okay, and then that is pretty much right, west, or pretty much anything that's east of the prime meridian. Okay, so again, longitude lines are pretty much the vertical line that goes north or south, but they are used to measure how far you are away from the prime meridian, either west or east. Okay, again, only difference, well, this is pretty much a lot difference. Pretty much they meet at the poles. They start at the North Pole or the South Pole, not the same distance. Again, they run north or south, up and down our globe, but they are used to measure how far you are away from the prime meridian, either east or west. Again, right down the middle, please note that is measured in 0 degrees. Okay, so our prime meridian is 0 degrees. And each lines, again, is measured in degrees, but please indicate which direction. Okay? Again, right? North Pole, South Pole, any line that goes up and down are your longitude lines. Longitude lines. Okay, hopefully I haven't confused anyone. Okay, if you are confused, just let me know. I will be more than happy to explain it to you again. Okay? I need to review that. So again, once again, latitude lines, latitude, flat, think of a ladder, and these steps on a ladder are like latitude lines. Okay, they are used to measure the distance you are away from the equator, either north or south. The equator starts at 0 degrees, and we just work our way up or work our way down. Okay, and they are the same distance apart. Okay, whereas longitude, okay, are vertical lines that goes north or south, but they are used to measure the distance east or west of the prime meridian. Okay, how far you are away from the prime meridian, either east or west. They are not the same distance apart. Okay, I'll say that again. They start at the poles, either North Pole or South Pole. Okay, again, think of a ladder. If you have a ladder, okay, Okay, so any steps on a ladder, latitude, and for longitude, think of the side of the ladder or the leg of the ladder. Okay. Questions? Hopefully I haven't confused anyone or lost anyone. Okay, again, all these informations are in your textbook. I just summarize into my own notes so that it's clear, so that we don't need to decipher anything. Okay. Again, on my screen, I have more illustrations of what is a latitude and longitude. Again, I'm going to say it again because I think I pretty much probably confuse one or two students. Okay, it can be tricky. Okay, it can be tricky. Okay, but again, if you're using our prior math knowledge where we're integrating with our today's lesson, it should help. Okay, so again, the equator, imaginary line. Maybe I should use a different color. Okay, it's imaginary line that goes across horizontally on the globe. Okay, right in the middle. Again, it starts at 0 degrees. Okay, because we measure each line in degrees. Okay, latitudes are lines we are used to measure. Okay, and any of these blue lines is north. Okay, and these red lines, and then that's below the equator, measure it south. Okay, measure how far you are away from the equator. Okay, again, longitude. This line right here that goes straight down the middle vertically from the poles is known as longitude, or sorry, the prime meridian or the y-axis. Okay, and these lines right here again are longitude, and that's red. We know that's west. Okay, and then these blue lines are east. How far you are away from the prime meridian in terms of east direction. Okay. Again, latitude, longitude, equator, prime meridian. Okay, northeast, southwest. Any questions so far, class? Any questions? No? Okay, good. Hopefully that all makes sense. Again, if you are confused or have any questions, just let me know. Again, I'll be more than happy to help or rephrase any of these content that we're going over. So again, on my screen, again, I have another map, not a globe of the Earth. Again, it has all the different continents on it: North America, South America, Africa, Asia, and all that. Again, you note these lines. Okay, we now know what their names are. Okay, latitude, longitude. Okay, so this line right here that went there across is, so again, I should use a different color. It's the equator. Okay, again, if you use our math terminology, the x-axis. Whereas the line that goes straight down the middle vertically is the prime meridian, otherwise known as the y-axis. Okay? Again, we throw these lines up and down the globe horizontally, vertically, north, south, east, west. Okay? We pretty much have a grid system with coordinates on our map. Okay? So now we're going to look at, so now we know what the equator is, what the prime meridian is, what longitude, what latitude are, what they mean. Now we're going to use these lines in order to locate a specific location or the exact location on the globe using these lines. Okay. Again, before we do that, I just want to point out again, anyone that's living near the equator, Okay, it's a lot warmer. Okay, but again, as you start to move away from the equator, it's a lot colder. Okay, so anything that's between the lines of Tropic of Cancer, which is this line right here, or any line that's near the Tropic of Capricorn, this is known as the tropics area. Okay, anything between these two lines are known as the tropic areas. Anything that's on the outside of these lines, okay, are known as hemispheres. Okay, it's a lot colder. Okay, a lot colder. Okay, why is that, you may ask? Well, quick lesson on that is that our globe is round, shaped as a circle, not a circle but a sphere. Okay, so as the sun is shining, it's shining closest towards the equator, which means that it has more heat. Okay, so anything that's again near the equator or in between the lines of Tropic of Cancer or Tropic of Capricorn, it's a lot warmer. Whereas if you live near the poles or the North Pole or South Pole, the sun shines ray does not really reach this area. Okay, it takes longer distance to reach it, so hence why it's a lot colder. Okay, a little lesson in a little nutshell, almost. Okay, we're not gonna spend time on that, but I just want to point that out. Again, I have another map of the globe. Again, this illustration notes different hemisphere. Again, anything above the equator, and then north of the equator, northern hemisphere, pretty straightforward. And then below the equator or south equator, southern hemisphere. Okay, anything that's on the left-hand side of the prime meridian, we're at the western hemisphere. Okay, anything on the right hand side, again, is known as the eastern hemisphere. Okay, again, that's where our knowledge of the sense of direction comes in handy. So, for example, here in Canada, here in North America, you can note that we are above the equator, which means that here in Canada, or anyone in Canada, we're located in the northern hemisphere, but on the western hemisphere. Okay, so anyone that's living on western or northern hemisphere, okay, that's pretty much North America. Okay, that's why people say, oh, which sphere are you on? Eastern sphere, the southern sphere. Okay, Canada, for example, we're in the northern sphere, but on the western sphere of the globe. Okay, again, I just want to point that out, throw that out there as well. Okay, that is pretty much today's lesson. I think there's one more thing that we need to go over. Okay, I'm gonna talk about it right now. Probably won't have time to go over our last and final assignment, assignment 16. We'll save that till Thursday. But I just want to go through just the last point before we call it a night. Again, I will review this material on Thursday before we go over the test. Okay, more expectation for the test. Okay, so let's continue. Let's finish off a lesson tonight. Okay, so locating the exact specific place on a map on a globe using latitude and longitude lines. Okay, again, I talked about we know what latitude, longitude, equator, prime meridian. So now we must use these lines and our knowledge to locate the exact location on a map. Okay, so I'll read this to you. I think you do have this map in your textbook. It says using this diagram, note how longitude and latitude determine exact locations on a map. Okay, remember latitude always written first, okay, followed by north or south, followed by longitude, which is indicated east or west. Okay, are you lost? That's okay. Let's start a new page, and I will simply clarify this. Okay, so, sorry, let's go back. So again, I have a map, and right here, you see this little X. We can define this exact location using the lines of latitude and longitude. Okay, so if I go across this line right here, this is, what line is it? Yes, you are correct if you have said latitude line. And if you follow this line right here that goes, again, across the X, and this line is called what? Longitude, exactly. Okay, so we can use these latitude and longitude lines to locate the exact point of this letter X. Okay, if I follow this line, we know what that is 60 degrees north and 90 degrees north. Okay, so how do we write this? Okay, note from what it says in your textbook, you write latitude first, using north or south, followed by longitude, east or west. So let's go to a blank page. Okay, so again, you must write latitude first. Okay, followed by then longitude. All right, underneath. Okay, so again, latitude, and then it's, sorry, wrong direction. Okay, latitude. This way, latitude, remember, right? Latitude for flats. And followed by then longitude. Okay? So your answer will look something like this, okay? It goes pretty much, okay, the degree or the number goes here. Okay, you have a little degree sign, which is KLARS degrees. Okay, and that will be either north or south. Then you have, again, number goes here on this line. Again, you have degrees, followed by the degrees in terms of east or west. Okay, this is what your answer will look like, followed by a closing bracket. Okay, so for example, if we go back one page to this map, if I was to write the answer of what is the letter X on this map, again, I will write latitude first, okay, which we know is right here. So we'll write 60 degrees north, okay, because it's north of the equator, okay, and then we have a longitude line, okay, which will be, all right, underneath, 30 degrees east, okay, because it's 30 degrees east of the prime meridian, okay. Again, equator, I have it in green, okay. We are 60 degrees north of the equator, Okay, hence why it's 60 degrees north for this letter X. And I'll draw in the prime meridian green again. And we are 30 degrees east of the prime meridian. Okay, so for this exact location of this letter X, okay, it's 60 degrees north, 30 degrees east. Okay, so that is how we locate the exact location on a map. Okay, using our knowledge and our understanding of latitude and longitude lines. Okay, again, if you're lost or confused, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to go over it with you again. Okay. Okay, so we do have a bit of time, so I'm just gonna quickly go through questions on assignment 16. Again, like I said, I will go over these questions again next class on Thursday so that there's no confusion. Okay, so this is your last and final assignment for PLAR History and Geography. We have made it to the end. Okay, so assignment 16 out of 13 marks. Okay, bit different. Okay, you don't have to write me any full sentences. For this assignment 16, new format, something called multiple choice. Multiple choice. You will need to use a map to answer these questions. The map is on the last page, so this map right here. Again, it is in your workbook. Okay, so using this map right here will tell you all the answers that you need to answer questions on assignment 16. Okay, so you need to use this map. Okay, so basically, you have a statement. Okay, for example, lines of latitude on a globe shows. Okay, then you have A, B, or C, multiple choice. Okay, you have 3 options, so you're 33% of, again, the correct answer. Okay, so put the letter in the box on which statement you think is correct. Okay, so for example, question number 1 asks, lines of latitude on a globe shows A, the location of places, B, directions east or west of the prime meridian, C, distance north or south of the equator. Okay, think about it, think about it. Okay, again, question number 2, lines of latitude on a globe shows A, B, or C. Again, you read a statement and you put your correct answer in the box. Pretty straightforward in terms of multiple choice. Okay, so pretty much you read all these statements and you pick the correct answer and you put it in the box. Again, you must refer to this map right here. Okay, on the next page of assignment 16, different format again, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Okay, again, you're going to refer to that map on the last page. Again, you're going to read each statement and you're going to find the correct answer. For example, number 6, question number 6, the lines of latitude that goes through Australia is labeled. I'm looking for a particular degree here. Okay. Questions 7 and 8, I'm looking for, no, question 7, I'm looking for a location. Question number 8, I'm looking for a degree. Question 9, 10, 11, and 12, I'm looking for a specific number or degree. And 13.8 is located at, again, looking for a location. Okay. Again, pretty straightforward, nothing too difficult. Some of the question may be confusing. So if you have questions, just let me know. Okay. Are there any questions about today's class? Again, I will quickly go over the key points next class on Thursday. Okay. So we will wrap things up on Thursday. Okay. at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time or 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, we'll wrap up this course on Thursday. Again, I will go over the key points of today's class in terms of latitude and longitude. I'll go over questions again on assignment 16, and then I will give you some examples of what you can expect when writing your tests for this course, PLAR History and Geography. Okay, so if you're interested in that, highly recommend you tune in till Thursday class. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up for tonight's class. Are there any last questions or comments before I go? Again, if you have any difficulties with your assignments, please let me know. Again, please work on those assignments. Okay, ideally you should be done by this term, all your assignments, but I understand that things happen in life and we get busy. That's okay. But again, please continue to work on your assignments. Send them to me when you're done and have that chance. Okay. So I'm gonna stop it for here for tonight. Again, thank you so much for listening and participating. I will see everyone here again on Thursday as we wrap up the course and the term. Thank you. Have a good night.